Hello and welcome to part 8 of the VR character series. Today we will be creating hand animations for the weapons we created in part 6. I wanted to use procedural animations, but I couldn't find a way to align all the fingers with each weapon dynamically. This is why we are going with a fixed animation approach. So anyway, let's get started. Let's start by adding a new Enum. Go to the Blueprints folder, Weapons, and in here right-click, go to Blueprint, and create a new enumeration. We will call this E_projectile weapon type. Then let's open it up, and we are going to add 4 enums. The first one is none. Then the next one is the pistol. Third one is the rifle. And the last one is the shotgun. Now, in here, the pistol one is not for every pistol that we will add. For example, if you have 2 different pistols, let's call them pistol 1 and pistol 2, and their handles are different, or let's say their handles are so different that you can't use the same animations. You would create 2 of these, one for pistol 01 and another one for pistol 02. We will use this enumeration for differentiating in our animation blueprint which animation we are actually going to use. But in this example, we only need 1 because we only have 1 pistol, so this will do. Then we can close this again. Then next we want to go back to the Blueprints folder and into the interfaces and open up our weapon interface. In here we are going to add a new function. So on the top left, click Add Function, and we are going to call this Get Projectile Weapon Type. And we want an output. The type should be our created enum, so Projectile Weapon Type. Go, then you can compile this and save and close. Next, we are going to go to our projectile weapon folder and open up the BP projectile weapon base. In here, we are going to add a new variable. We will call this projectile weapon type, and it is of type projectile weapon type enum. And for a later step, I'm going to change the trigger max representation from a private variable to a public one, so we can see it in the details panel when we select our weapon. But this is for later. We can save this, and then scroll up to our functions, select override, and then select our newly created get projectile weapon type function. And in here, we will simply return our projectile weapon type variable. Now that this is done, we can open up our weapons. So in our weapon, projectile, select all of these and open them up by clicking enter. Now in here, we want to go down here to the projectile weapon type. We are in the rifle shotgun, so this is going to be the rifle because it's the same mesh as the rifle. Compile and save, close this. In the rifle again, we want the projectile weapon type to be of type rifle. Compile and save. Pump action shotgun is going to be the shotgun. And the pistol is going to be the pistol. There we go. Next, we are going to open up our VR character. In here, we are going to add event dispatchers. We will use this to tell the animation blueprint when the main hand has changed and when the projectile weapon type has changed. So first, let's create a new event, and we will call it on is right main hand changed. And we want this to have an input of type bool, is main hand. And the next one is the same for the left. So on is left main hand changed. It also has an input of type bool, is main hand. And the next one is called on right projectile weapon type change. Here we also have an input of type projectile weapon type. And again, the same for the left. There we go. Now we can go into the event graph. And then in our grab function, I will start with grab right. We are going to the cast mode where we cast to the weapon interface. Then we will take this and make some space. Let's drag this out a bit. And here I will add a reroute node between. There we go. And then also copy the isWrite main hand variable. And here we will get our onIsWrite main hand changed. Then after that, we want to call the onWrite projectile weapon changed. And from the interface, we will get the projectile weapon type. And then the output is the input here. Actually, I just realized I forgot to rename this. This shouldn't be called new param, but projectile weapon and type. There we go. And that's that. Then for the stop grabbing, we can grab all of this and again make some space. It should be fine. Then in here we will get our call on isWrite main hand and the call on isWrite projectile changed. And since we are stop grabbing, we can simply set this to false and this to none. And now we do the exact same for the left. So give me one moment. There we go. This is already it for the VR character. So let's compile and save. Now we can close this and we can go into our animation blueprint. And here we are going to first go to the event graph. And actually I will take the update animation node and move it up here because we will need a little bit more space down here. And now we are going to assign each of our events to an event node. So we will call assign on isWrite main hand changed. And then from here we will promote to variable and we will call this isWrite main hand. And before I forget it, of course, also get the VR character reference. And we will assign the isLeft main hand. And create a new variable. isLeft main hand. We do this so we don't have to check for this variable every time in the tick event, because that would not be very good for performance. And with this only updates when it's actually being changed. And then, of course, it's the same for our projectile weapon types. So assign on right projectile weapon type changed. Go to variable. Right projectile weapon type, and then the same for the left. Now, next we are going to the check finger collisions function, and we are going to remodel this a bit. So I will disconnect the left and right from each other. So you see this part here is for the right fingers, and all of this is for the left. Then I will take all of this and move it up a bit. Because now we only want to do these traces if we are not holding the weapon in the main hand. Then connect all of this to a sequence. There we go. And in between of these, we are going to add a branch. This is where we check if the right and the left hand is actually holding a weapon or if it can move procedurally. Here we will get the right projectile weapon type. I'm just taking it, yes, R, right. And here we will check if it does not equal enum, if it doesn't equal none. Then add an AND bool and check if the is right main hand true and negate this AND. So add a not bool. There we go. This will make it possible for this to only run if we are, for example, if we are grabbing a melee weapon and if we are grabbing a projectile weapon where the type is set, then these both will be true, meaning the end result will be false. So this will not update. Otherwise, the value of our trigger finger will always be set to the last collision. And then it would still have the problem of not updating because it recognizes that it's colliding with the weapon. This is why we need all this. And then, of course, we can copy this and do the same for the left. Now let's go into our fingers function. And here we want to also change this. So I'm going to disconnect the output pose, and then I will save this in a cached pose. And I will call this dynamic finger pose. And down here we are going to add a blend poses by bool node. And the false input is just going to be our dynamic finger pose that we cached. We want to copy this up here because here we will be creating another animation layer and we are going to want to input this. Now for the condition, we can go back to our check finger collision and copy the right part without the not bool. So copy this, go back to fingers and paste it. There we go. Because now we only want to use the upper part where we actually play the animations if these two are true. Now on the left, scroll all the way up to animation layers and add a new animation layer. I will call this right weapon hand animation. Now in here, first thing we want to do is select the function, come here to the right and add a new input pose. This will be the pose of the things that we passed from before. Then we want to get a layered blend per bone node. And in here we are going to go to the layer setup, index, branch filters. And in here we want 5 filters or 5 indices. Since we don't care about the rotation of our hand, because that's already determined by the way we grab the weapon, we only want this to be applied to the fingers. So we're going to input every first finger of the hand. So the first one will be the thumb O1 R, since we're on the right side. And just so you know, to get these, you can simply open up the skeleton. And then if you go to the hand, this is the left hand, can see index O1 underscore L, middle, pinky, thumb, and so on. So that's how you get these bone names in case you are not using the Unreal Engine 5 mannequin. So next one will be the index O1 R, middle O1 R, ring O1 R, and the pinky O1 R. So this can go to the output. Then the base pose is just our input pose. And from the blend pose 0, we are going to add a blend poses projectile weapon type. We are going to input our right right projectile weapon type. And now if you see we only have the default pose, but you can right click it, and down here you can add the different poses. Now we don't need the none, because if it's none, we are simply going to use the input node. So you can simply add the pistol, rifle, and the shotgun. Now from here, we are going to add a two-way blend to each of these, except for the default pose, because again, we don't need it. And then here for the alpha, we are going to use the right index value for each of these. For now, we don't have any animations to input here, but we will come to that shortly. So before we continue, we can actually duplicate this function or this animation layer, call it left weapon hand animation. And then, of course, make sure to change all of this to the left variant. So left projectile weapon type. And here, left index value. And also very important, in our layer blend per bow node, change every finger from the right variant to the left. So just if you're using the Unreal Engine 5 mannequin, you can simply change the R to an L at the end. And what is also very important, to make some space and add a mirror node to this using the MDT many that we created in a previous part. We will simply mirror this, so we don't have to actually create left and right variants for each hand animation. So we only need to create the right one, and then we simply mirror it. And now before we create the animations, we can go back into fingers, and in here add our right hand animation and input our cached finger pose into the right weapon hand animation layer, and the output of that goes into the true pose. And now we are going to save this in a new cached pose, and I will call this right weapon hand pose, because otherwise we would have to duplicate all of this, and that's just unnecessary. So we are going to save this, and then down here we will do the same, but for the left. So I will duplicate this, add this to the output pose, and then get our right weapon and pose that we cached. There we go. And then from here, we will get the left hand animation layer. Put that like this, and only the cached pose into the false pose. And here we will get the left projectile weapon type, and the is left main hand. There we go. Now we can go on to creating the animations. Creating the animations is a little bit tricky, but I recommend you go to the control rig, characters, mannequins, rigs, and then get the CR mannequin body. Then you can place it anywhere in the world. It will open up the animation mode. And I am actually going to go back to the selection and rotate this 90 degrees. So it's looking in the X direction. And then we can go back to the animation mode. Now it doesn't matter how you turn or position the hand. Again, we are only going to use the fingers. I'm going to position it like this so it's a bit easier to see. Now I always recommend going all the way up here, and on the CR mannequin body, select this little plus icon so you add a key everywhere. And then you can select this, so it always creates a key as soon as you change something. Now, next thing we're going to do is going to go to our weapons, projectile weapons, and I will get the pistol. I will move this up a bit, doesn't really matter where. Then on the right, currently we are in the animation outliner, but we are going to go to the outliner, get our pistol, and attach it to our CR mannequin. And in here, we are going to attach to the hand R. Now, down here in the details panel, we can reset everything. There we go. actually add 180-degree rotation. It does that because of the bone rotation, not too sure why. And now if we open up our VR character again, because right now you can see the hand is at the wrist, the pistol is at the wrist, but not where we are actually holding it in the hand, which is quite important. So we are going to select our RPC in the VR character. And in here you can see we added an offset of -7 to the x-axis and +3 to the y-axis. So we are going to do the same to the pistol. So -7 and 3. However, this is not it yet, because if we select the weapon mesh and open up the body, in here, if you remember, we set the handle bone, which is the actual position where we grab the weapon. So we don't always have to set the origin of the weapon. In here we have the relative location. And now I'm going to copy these two. And we are going to add these to this location. Actually, we are going to subtract it, because otherwise it would move in the wrong direction, because this is also a local offset. But if we want to grab the weapon down here, we have to move all of this up. This is why we subtract the value. And then the same for the C value. There we go. Now it should be in the correct position. Now we can select our control rig again. If you're using the Unreal Engine 5 mannequin, you can just use this ball thing to rotate the hand. Actually, I will do it here for the trigger finger, because otherwise, as you can see here, the thing is like sticking out too far, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to do this like this. And also very important, on the top right here, you have the global gizmo right now. Select this so you get the local one, because you can see now this is aligned with the rotation of the finger, and otherwise you will weirdly twist the finger. Adjust this here with a bit more fine tuning. Now, first we are doing the released state of the finger. So we want this to just align with the trigger. This seems good enough for now. And then, of course, we also want the thumb to align and all the other fingers. Now we have our release state of the trigger, so we can scroll all the way up in the sequencer and right-click the CR mannequin body and select Bake Animation Sequence. I will save this to the animations folder. Actually, I will create a new one called Weapon Hands, and I will call this Pistol Release Right, and save this. Now next, this is why before we changed the visibility of the variable trigger max rotation, we can see this trigger will rotate -20 degrees. So with this, we want to select the pistol, then select the trigger mesh, and I know you can see it very well because of the physics constraint. So now we will rotate this. Actually, let me turn back on snapping for the rotation. We'll rotate this -20 degrees. And then go back to our control rig and align the finger with the trigger. And now we can scroll all the way back up again, right-click the control rig, Bake Animation Sequence, go to our Weapon Hands folder and call it Pistol Trigger Pulled Right. I'm going to create all the other animations off screen, but it's basically the same, just check the handle bone. If you have rotation, also make sure to take that into consideration. And then it's everywhere the same process. So just so you don't have to sit here for 10 hours and watch me do this, you can just do it by yourself. And of course, as always, the project will be uploaded to a Google Drive folder, so you can also simply download it if you want to. Hey, it's editing me here. I just quickly want to show you something, because while trying to create the animations for the shotgun, I did run into some trouble where the shotgun did not align, even though I added the rotation of the bone, of the handle bone and everything. It still did not align with it. So the trigger finger was up here where the metal part is and not down at the trigger, even though when I created it here, it did line up. I don't exactly know why this is happening. I assume this is because we are using physics and that is somehow messing with the offsets. So what I recommend you do in your AVP VR character, now I already created some animations where I then saw that it was wrong. I disconnect those. Then you grab the shotgun in VR and you find spots where it aligns. So, for example, I saw that the trigger went through the middle finger. This line up here from the wood and the metal lined up with the knuckle of the index. And down here, the pinky was about at this level. I only had this happen on the shotgun. Again, I assume because we have a rotation here. Currently, this is the only fix that I found. I know it's a bit inconvenient, but just find these lines, assign them, and now you can go back to setting up the animations and trying to make them fit. Now we have our animation, so let's go back into our VR character animation blueprint. And we can go into the right weapon hand animation, and in here, we will search for our pistol, trigger released, and pistol trigger pulled. Now we connect the release point to A, because if this is 0, it means we are not currently pressing the trigger, so our finger should be released, and otherwise it should be pulled. I'm going to make some more space here. And again, here now you would input the rifle animations and here the shotgun pose. Then you can copy these two, go to the left weapon hand animation and simply insert them here, just like we did before. In the next part, we are going to implement the hit reaction. For this, we will be creating a simple enemy which will play a matching animation based on what type of damage was applied. Until then, make sure to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments if you need any help, and I will see you next time. Bye!